Welcome to Bring the Real, a podcast focused on brand experience in the modern marketplace. I'm your host, Alex Vera. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to a special episode of Bring the Real today, where we're doing things a little bit different. For those of you who have caught our podcast in the past, I think you'll recognize that we're really focused on the creation of brand experiences across a really broad spectrum. And we typically are focused on looking outward into the marketplace. Today, we're doing things a little bit differently. We are also a part of a killer brand launch for the SGK global brand. And so we're bringing in some of the folks that make things happen every day as a part of our creative leadership and brand leadership at SGK. So we're kind of doing double duty with the podcast today. I hope you guys enjoy it. We've got three really killer participants and guests today with us. We've got Shannon Blue. Say hey, Shannon.
Hi.
We've got Chris Massaro, who's a creative partner of mine almost every single day. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Alex.
And Jason Rosenberg, creative leader out of our offering out in New York. So hey, say hey, Jason.
Hey everyone, how are you?
All right. Thank you guys for jumping on with us. Shannon, maybe we'll kick it off with you. If you want to just do a quick intro on your background, and we'll kick it around, get everybody introduced.
Yeah, sure. So, hi, I'm a senior client director within SGK. I actually, prior to coming to SGK, have a retail experience background, but fell in love with packaging and had the opportunity, as the landscape has changed and the digital universe has evolved, to explore and bring connected packaging into the SGK portfolio, and something that we're helping our clients dive into across the globe.
It's awesome. Thanks for hanging out with us. Chris, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. So Chris Massaro, I'm based in our Baltimore, Maryland studio. I've been with the organization for 3 years. I'm responsible for leading the creative and design services in North America, as well as have the privilege of participating in marketing, and was very proud to play a small role in the standing up of our new SGK brand and identity. Prior to joining the organization, I was on the client side for many years. So I've had the privilege of working with SGK both from the other side of the desk, as well as within our own four walls.
Awesome. And Jason, last but certainly not least, do a quick intro for us.
Hey guys, so I'm Jason Rosenberg. I'm out here, as you mentioned, in a sunny day here in Brooklyn, New York. I've been with SGK now about 2 years, so maybe I'm one of the new guys. I have worked on the West Coast and out here in the East Coast of New York City. I've been out here for over 10 years now. I've worked on the agency side and in-house side, working with some of the biggest brands and businesses, and really excited to be a part of the conversation today. So thanks for the invite.
Yeah, man. Thanks for hanging with us. So let's dive right into it. One of the biggest reasons we brought this group together is because we really wanted to dive into this context of connected experiences, right? The brand ecosystem evolving the way it is dependent more and more on not just the experiences that brands can create, but how those experiences connect to one another. And I think everyone, in this conversation today has got a unique perspective or something that they've experienced in project work or in brand work. That's a new way to connect the dots, whether it's by way of content linked to things like packaging that Shannon's been exposed to, or brands connecting in unique ways through their product or through the way that they distribute that product, or even in the way that we shape brand ecosystems. Everybody on this conversation's got some direct experience that I want to tap into as a part of this conversation. And so I thought I'd start with one of the most direct links, right, in terms of how we connect some of these experiences together. SGK has a deep set of roots in the packaging space. One of the largest strategic and production level packaging providers on the planet. And we've been doing a lot of work in connecting the dots there. So Shannon, I would love to start and just ask you to share some of the experiences that you've seen in the way that content plays a role in connecting that pack from the shelf out into the consumer ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, thank you. It's absolutely huge. And the opportunities there are endless. I think out there in the marketplace where everyone's just getting started, it's a super exciting time. But, advancement in technology, whether it be simple things like, technology within native cameras, 5G, AR, web AR, has all exploded, and via something simple like a QR code, you can launch amazing brand experiences from your packaging, from a retail store, from a hang tag on a t-shirt. So no longer is the physical, the end point, right? When you have that pack, when you're sitting down eating your breakfast cereal in the morning, for those of us that get that free moment, having a code on pack that can take your consumers to a deeper experience is really gold dust, because that's, like, in a sense, private one-on-one time you get with your consumer at the point of consumption. So you can give them games to play, right? You can give them content. If you're a wellness brand, you can give them that wellness brand content that they may be yearning for. You can do user social, have conversations with the consumer. I mean, really, the possibilities are endless. And the one thing I'll say that is so important is knowing what that consumer is going to be doing when they may engage with you, as you talk about how fragmented journeys are and experiences are, and really providing them something of value, something of interest, something that they can do. A lot of people, again, out there trying, will go just to .coms, and it doesn't cut it, right? We all know what branded .coms are in many cases. So I would just say anything we can do to create experiences, and you can amplify things that you're doing elsewhere. That's not to say, if you have something, a great TV commercial, or a really killer OLV spot, that you can't leverage that and amplify it. You should absolutely do those things. But again, give them a very targeted, enjoyable consumer experience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff to unpack there.
Yeah.
I'll pick up on two.
Yeah.
I'll pick up on two specific elements and kind of open this up to the broader group. There's one, which is this notion that the bridge to that extended content from a physical artifact, right, whether it's a package or a display or a retail window, is now a very simple, ubiquitous thing, right? The idea of a QR code kind of came and went, and now it's come back again. And during the pandemic, we've seen it as a link to menus for ordering takeout. And this little buddy of a QR code has now come back to the front, and it's such an easy and simple link. I'm curious, what folks have seen in terms of what the relevant content is, because the second piece that you brought up, which I find really interesting, is that the link is really just that. It's a link, it's a bridge, it's a piece that connects dots, but it's what you do with it that matters. And so I'd love to maybe get the perspective of the broader group here and just engage in a little bit of dialogue on how those connections take shape and what that relevant content is that people are seeing in the marketplace.
And I'll just chime in quickly. That's what I picked up on too. You said sort of two things that open up all kinds of ways for us to get the conversation going. One was value, which, Alex, I think you're really talking about, right? It's how do we create value or relevance, meaning, right? Because I think that's what we're all looking for. And I'd love to talk more about that value, that meaning, that relevance, and how we can really serve people, even if it's just entertainment or content, if you will. And we'll get into, how we can go much farther beyond that. The other thing that you mentioned was technology. And it's so hard, there's so many big topics to talk about here, but I think technology is also one of the things that connects all of this, right? Because we are bombarded with so much stuff, so much content, so many things battling for our mind share, for our time, whether and how we value that time. But the technology component, just because of the Internet of Things, and again, with the time that we're living in right now, and from connecting to my menu on my phone. So I'd love to talk about how we create meaning and relevance and value, and what that means for us as designers, and how we can potentially design everything and create meaning in everything. And also the technology aspect of it, and just how that is so much a part of this, AR, digital, social media. So, all right, I'll pass the mic a little bit, but love to those are the two things that kind of stuck out to me on where you were going, Shannon.
Yeah, I'll double click on both of those with you, Jason. I mean, I think the value piece for me, I talk a lot about kind of meeting the consumer where they are with relevant information. And for me, that's the value piece, like sitting at the kitchen table and having a bowl of cereal with my daughters, and being able to engage that product and have a gamification moment, right? Where we can explore and have fun together. Or if it's a moment where, I'm in health and wellness mindset, and I want to learn about nutritional facts from that packaging or product. Or, a big part of my career has been spent in sportswear and performance apparel, and I want to be able to scan that hang tag or scan that box and know how it's going to make me better. And I love that value aspect, but it means different things to me at different times. And then when you start to think about social media as well, I mean, I'm kind of in a different mindset, even when I'm, in LinkedIn versus Instagram versus Snap versus TikTok, et cetera. So meeting me with the right, just from a consumer perspective, the right content at the right time from the same brand, even if it's just how we articulate a specific story in channel makes a huge difference. And then the technology piece, it's funny, Alex, you talked about sort of the resurrection of QR codes. And I remember, it wasn't that long ago, as an industry, we were forcing QR codes in the market. And we had the littlest barrier to entry, right? Which was you had to download an app to use a QR code, and it was too much. And they were gone, and they died. And all it took was that little innovation of technology. And now all of a sudden, there's been this gigantic leap from just the ability to be able to connect to a QR code to now the expectation. I almost expect, brands that I care about, that I engage with, to have another level of storytelling, of an opportunity for me to immerse, whether it's entertainment or education or gamification.
I find that really interesting too, because when we match that consumer expectation, right? Now there's that expectation that there's more to it than just the one thing. I think it provides a really interesting link to another consumer expectation that we're seeing in the marketplace, which is that brands deliver something meaningful. And I think that's, Jason, to what you were talking about. It's not just a display to an ad to a video. The consumer expectation in today's marketplace is that you're delivering something that's authentic and that's meaningful and that's potentially mission-based. And so when I think about these disparate touch points that channels within brands tend to create, it's really tough to bridge those two things together. So if you've got, say, an in-store promotion that's all about conversion, but going on in parallel, that same brand might be sponsoring an activity, an event, an occurrence, whether it's something having to do with wellness. When I think about sponsorships for marathons or athletic events, it could be a partnership with a sports brand. It could be a partnership in the food space. I'd love to chat a little bit about how those connections create that meaning.
I'm going to pick up on where you're going, because that relevancy and that through line, the ability to manage that, to be a part of the conversation, to have some form of strategy or control, if you will, knowing that the consumer now is really in the driver's seat. They're the ones driving those conversations, and they're the ones that we're all competing with for mind share. And so that relevance is so important. And if we can find ways to follow them, to provide value and relevance, meaning the storytelling around all of these activations from, an example, like when I'm at shelf, right, and I'm buying the product, that sort of commodity service interaction, to maybe how I show up online or in social media or create an activation or, some sort of in real life experience. I think that, again, from a designer's point of view, it's no longer about that one thing. It's really about trying to connect them in a meaningful, strategic way, and designing, if we can, for all of those experiences, again, to maybe, hopefully, if we do it right and we do it well, to create that relevance, but to really connect back to what you were saying, to that larger purpose. Like, what is my brand or my product or my service stand for, and how can I reinforce that, even if it's and there are a million ways to do that. We can do that in an entertaining way. We can do that in a serious way. We can do that in a conversion way. So to me, that's an important part that we as designers and as brand experts can help really drive. And especially, during this time, again, whether it's through technology or real life or combination. So
Jason, picking up on the idea of, that every element we create is bigger than that single artifact, right? And how it all connects to this larger ecosystem is something we obviously talk about and really passionately try to curate from that consumer experience perspective. Because the one thing, and Shannon, I think this may kick kind of back over to you, is the points of entry are so different and so unique for every consumer. And for me, personally, like when I think about any one of those artifacts or moment, I think about it as an entry point to the brand or to the product experience, and typically having multiple sort of tangential stories that you can create or paths, right? One may be incredibly transactional, right? Like I want everything to be shoppable. If I'm on Instagram and I see a product that I'm interested in, I just kind of expect for there to be a shop button or a link in bio that I can shop. Or if it's a brand or a story I want to engage in, I expect for there to be a way for me to go and dig in, right, and learn more. And that's a part of, just kind of curating that experience for, through the lens of everybody's own personal journey is incredibly complicated, but so meaningful, right, when we can land that for an individual consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, some of the examples of things that we've done and see out in the marketplace do phenomenal jobs of that. So, Special K is a great example of a company that dove in, or a brand, they connected their brand, built a always on platform that gives the consumers 24-hour access to them. It leverages a media partnership to provide wellness content of all kinds, not just, eating well, things like de-stressing, staying active, all things incredibly relevant with everything going on in the world right now. But it also has promotions and offers, and depending on what pack you scan, the experience is tailored, and the first thing you see may be the promotion if you scan a promotion pack. If you scan a brand pack, you're going to see branded content first. But irregardless of what you scan from, all of this is available to the consumer. They can find it. They can push off to e-com. They can learn about new products. And they also have, again, the ability just to have that deeper conversation and spend time with the brand and experience them in a new way. And if you think about those of you that, are my age and older that know Special K, they were known very diety, right? And this is, an awesome way for that brand to have that conversation with the consumer and expand what they think of them.
But again, it's, where there are these challenges or opportunities, or where there are opportunities there are challenges. And as branders and designers, a lot of this is about creating that meaning and that relevancy, as we've been talking, and potentially, strategizing around how we really develop a through line. But then there's also, the challenge of frequency, and how we can show up and continue that cycle, because there is, as you say, so the expectation now is that we will be there, whether we're on Instagram and how we show up on Instagram, or whether, we do our QR code and how we show up there. It's we're constantly competing. So finding the right touch points within the endless sort of opportunity for experiences is also another challenge, but an opportunity for us as brand folks.
Yeah, I think that's incredibly impactful. And Shannon, I'm so glad you brought up the Special K example, because on this podcast we typically shy away from talking about our own work. We're always looking out towards the market and out towards trend, but today's a little bit different. It's an opportunity for us to dive into some of the stuff that we do and share that with our audience, whether it's through the event that we're a part of or through our standard podcast channel. So I'd love to unpack that a little bit more. We talked about what a fantastic bridge this is to shape a brand. Can you talk a little bit about the impact, the result, and maybe if you guys could share a little bit about the work that we're engaged in today that's aimed at this sort of connection between touch points?
Yeah, sure. So, and to be respectful of the client, we have to, watch out from confidentiality standpoint in terms of data, but what I can say in terms of the experiences, and at least the experiences that we've created for our clients, is on average they see dwell times that far surpass any of the other touch points and anything else that they do digitally. So we see 90+ second dwell times, if not more, on some of our AR engagements that we've done. We see people spending 2 minutes and 30 seconds with the brand. I don't know what you do where you get that much focused time where someone's doing something, again, with your brand. It's absolute gold dust when you can have that. We all know people see TV commercials, but they have their laptop in their lap doing work, their cell phones binging, and the TV commercials in the background. And again, that, whether it's 90 seconds or the 230 with AR, that alone is huge. The bounce rates are incredibly low. You may know with a lot of .coms, the bounce rates in some cases are 90% of the people drop. They hit it and they're like, oh crap, I didn't mean to do that. With connected packaging, it's not like that. They scanned your pack, or if with a connected product, they scanned your product. They're automatically there. You've already captured them. And they're interested. So the results have been phenomenal. We see higher return rates than .coms. And to Jason, to your point, when we do these things, it's up to us to keep the content fresh, to do the right things with the platforms, to serve them up, to refresh, recycle, so that we are delivering a new experience every time. But again, the results have been phenomenal.
What I love about the Special K example, and I think it's relevant to a lot of brands that are rethinking sort of their connected experiences, the sharpness of the message, and no longer do we need to cast this gigantic net, right, to get to the small sample of the true audience, right? Now all the information is there. It's our job to speak directly to to the right consumer at the right time. And when I think about the importance of that and the power of that, it really gives brands the opportunity to tell a story that's so pure, right, to the brand voice, the brand purpose, the brand value, which in turn is gonna really cut through to the audience and the end user. And there's a couple other brands, AV, that I'm thinking about, from the sportswear space that we could kind of bring up here as well, that have done some excellent jobs of speaking to the consumer specifically. One that's always top of mind for us is Nike. And when I think about Nike and the relevance in the sneaker community, Nike did such an amazing job of socializing and gamifying the sneaker buying experience, right? Through the sneaker app, through the got 'em on Instagram, through just the ability to share and tell your friends about your experience. And they were also kind of on the forefront of the engaging in the community, locker pickup, et cetera. And then more recently, another one of our strategic partners in Lululemon, an opportunity for us to flex a little bit on our work here. This is an opportunity, an amazing opportunity where we've been fortunate to be a part of the work to help bring Mirror to market. And what that means for a brand like Lululemon, who's so passionate about community and connecting with the community. And what that always was before was inviting the community into your store and into your four walls. And now we're extending that community into your own home, into your bedroom, into the most intimate parts, into your most intimate places in your world. And Lululemon is able to be a part of that, and you're able to engage with the coaches, with the instructors. And so now that community isn't just a pull, it's also a push and pull relationship, and it's an always on, incredibly dynamic opportunity for Lululemon to continue to drive the community engagement.
Yeah, it's such an interesting evolution of that brand when you put Mirror into the mix, and how they were able not just to acquire that, but fold that right into their overarching story. There you've got an apparel company that's jumping right into a level of hardware and technology that really enhances that level of connectivity by way of the product. And so, we were fortunate enough to help tell that story, but I would love to dig into that a little bit more as to how that story gets told, because
Sure.
at the end of the day, you've then got a product, as you mentioned, Chris, where you've got an instructor, a community, you've got this very clear portal between brand and consumer. I'm curious how that's leveraged in a healthy way and how that story gets told.
Yeah, I think, from an outside perspective, and we saw a lot of it, through industry conversation, is, if you don't know the brand Lululemon well and their brand purpose, and you see Lululemon acquiring a technology platform like Mirror, you're like, how does this make sense, right? But if you really understand the brand purpose, and that the reason that that those folks wake up every day, and the brand they're trying to put out there is to help you be your best person, to be connected with like-minded people in your community, right? And when you think about what Mirror does and how that connects back, gives you an opportunity to connect back with the community, come into store. It gives you a direct connection from your phone to Lululemon. It gives you the ability to also gamify, or to share, or to converse with other folks within your community. And now that community is much bigger, right? But it's still intimate. That's what's amazing about it is, there was always, Lululemon was so amazing at curating programmatic content and clubs and things in market, right, where I could hang with like-minded people. But now I can hang with people who are even more like-minded than me, because my network is larger, right? And I'm able to share ideas and share inspiration and gain inspiration, and really make it a 24/7 conversation. And now, of course, I want to go back. I'm having these incredible experiences. I'm going to go back to store. Now that I have access in my home, it doesn't mean I'm not going to go to brick and mortar. Brick and mortar just takes on a different meaning for me now, right? It's a different purpose. I want to go for experience. I want to go to see what's next. And also, of course, the physical and social interaction that we all still crave as humans, regardless of how great that experience is. From a connected perspective, the physical experience to me is still such a key ingredient to the connected brand ecosystem.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think when you look at the growth of Lululemon, especially over the past year and a half, as folks have been looking for ways to stay active and connect to their community in new ways, there's no doubt that some of these moves that they're making in connecting dots is making a huge impact on their business. You mentioned something, Chris, there that reminded me of something when you talk about, activating a brand based on their purpose. And there's something, Jason, that you were involved in, which I think is very purpose-driven in terms of a brand living its own promise to its consumer, and that's Seventh Generation. I wonder, as you're hearing this, are there bells going off in the way that Seventh Gen has delivered its story to the marketplace as well?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Alex. We were lucky enough to work really closely with an innovation team over at Seventh Generation to help them actually develop a product that laddered right into their overall purpose and their positioning, their promise to hopefully create a better world for the next 7 generations. What was interesting about this product was that it was sort of blue sky. And what I mean by that is they were looking at waste, and they were looking at their own portfolio and how it was contributing to waste, and the challenges with recycling and the big word sustainability. And so they were looking for a design strategy, some packaging strategy solutions to help them potentially encroach upon their existing portfolio to create a line of products that had zero waste or zero plastic or zero water, to really live into their purpose and their promise and actually develop a go-to-market strategy. And so with that blue sky, we helped them sort of ideate and work with some testing groups and consumers to gather some insights and a lot of new behaviors here. And this was in the home cleaning, home care space for seventh generation. So it was a really exciting assignment. And within that, we also looked at, again, not only that singular sort of at shelf, in this case, maybe it was a direct to consumer offering, but how we would show up and tell that story anywhere and everywhere. So we did look at the social media landscape, how we might show up in a digital way, how we would potentially partner with other brands or businesses that had similar themes, and how we could create sort of tools and conversations and messaging and activations and experiences that, again, drove right into their purpose. So they could tell it in a meaningful, authentic way and make a difference. So that was a really exciting project, and proud to say that it's been really successful. So we're about to head into a next phase of extending that portfolio of products, and maybe someday all of their line will in fact be more sustainable and have zero plastic.
Awesome. It's so great to see how these, I think you mentioned it, Chris, you maybe kicked this thinking off, and I see it in 7th Gen 2, where because touch points are able to be more connected, right? Going back to our theme for this conversation, you're seeing physical, digital, social, mobile, all of these touch points really start to play off of one another rather than being these individual lanes to hit different notes. The way you put this together is way more of an organic ecosystem than it is a linear process. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up one part of that process that I see over and over again, and it's taking a new shape almost every time we see it, which are brands leaning on their own apps as another form of connection to the consumer. Wondering what you guys are seeing in the marketplace there and how these app-driven experiences are connecting dots across the network.
Man, apps. I have a lot of apps on my phone, and the ones that come to my mind right away are, whether I like to say it or not, Amazon and that app experience and experiences, including Amazon Prime. And in my neighborhood, there's something called Prime Now. So I can get something within 2 hours. What's also interesting, I shared this with the team the other day, as I was in my neighborhood, I saw a physical store of something that I had sort of seen peripherally, Fridge No More, which now will deliver to me a single product without any large fees, if you will, no delivery fees, in 15 minutes or less. So I do think that we're engaging with our apps, those experiences, whether they're literally only through the phone or how they show up in real life, are just part of how we live our lives today, right? So Amazon is a really interesting example of how they've sort of had an app and then extending to my TV, extending to how I shop, extending to how I expect products and experiences to show up, or whether if they don't show up, can I easily return it? Can I, for example, go to Kohl's? They have an exchange program, in certain areas where you can just, again, that connectivity. But what are your thoughts or favorite apps that really, you just can't live without?
I mean, one of the things that I've gravitated to is this whole idea that the branded app has now become this extension or portal of what used to be a physical experience. When I think about, order online, pick up in store, when I think about the way QSR has leveraged the app to skip the line in a place where suddenly quick serve food has an added level of relevance in today's marketplace, because for the longest time we weren't able to go eat in restaurants. And so if you're picking up a family meal, you could either wait in this extended long line, at a fast food restaurant, or you can order it via the app and it comes to your car. It's a whole different physical experience that wasn't a part of our landscape you know, and I'm seeing it done really well. And I'm also seeing it done in some ways that are a little bit clumsy. But in the end, it becomes this other way to connect. It connects the digital experience to the physical experience. That's one of the areas that I find kind of most fascinating.
I like the parallel of the app to, or the comparison of the app to kind of the new physical experience, because it does give you that opportunity to, like, because I also, Jason, of course, I think all of us, our number one used app functionally is probably Amazon. But, even when I think about, and a lot of this is kind of pandemic driven too, that's kind of forced some new habits, right? Where, like, the other retailers that we shop, I think about, Target has an amazing app experience, but I'm able to go shop category and almost kind of walk these aisles, right? And explore category in a really unique way. But I also think about, I still think there's so much untapped from an app perspective. And I think about QSR, I think about curbside pickup at grocery, et cetera. And every time I'm sitting in one of those parking spots and I see that, the sign in front of me, and I log in and I say I'm in spot number 5, right? I always want to scan something. I want to have an experience, right? Because I already have my phone in hand. And I think that's the next step for a lot of retailers in the extension of that experience. I mean, IKEA is one that's done a great job of bringing sort of the furniture visualization into your home and using that app as a tool directly, right? The showrooming feature, the magic of IKEA, bringing that into my living room so I can see that couch, right? Instead of having to drive to a destination. And I think for me, apps still have a barrier to entry for a lot of consumers. You don't want to have to download apps unless you absolutely have to. So there has to be a value there, beyond just entertainment or brand engagement, because we're getting all of that through social now.
Yeah, another, bringing that up too, I've seen, some of the Disney apps being really powerful and, sort of helping you navigate the complex, parks, giving you tips and tricks and discounts. And really, if you do want to take the time to download, when we talked about this, we initially kind of thought about having this conversation. One of the brands that came up for me was actually Domino's. And Domino's, with their app and how you have the ability to, I think, get delivery, track it, pick it up at a certain location, and now I think they'll deliver to your car, so you can go to a park and kind of get it delivered there. I find that again, as they're sort of growing and learning and expanding and making that functionality serve their purpose, which is to produce the best, fastest pizza. And again, when I think about their sort of the little that I know about their ecosystem, whether it's activations like insurance for your pizza, when carrying out, how they'll pave over road bumps, because they want to make that pizza ride smoother, how they're leveraging, automated driverless delivery. It's really interesting how they are taking advantage of technology and using different touch points, experiences, technology, whether it's playful, fun, or functional, to really drive that pizza experience. So I think they're doing a pretty darn an interesting job, whether how they're telling that story.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating because when you think about the food space, you think about Domino's place in it. That conversation really just highlights the fact that same product can have very different focuses depending on the brand, right? And so, Domino's is competing almost on some very similar playing grounds as an Amazon, but in a very different way. It's about, with Domino's, it's about last mile. It's about getting it quickly. It's about convenience. And in that way, they've created room for themselves in a really crowded market of delivery pizza, right? Jason, you live in Brooklyn. I used to live in Brooklyn. There are 1,000,001 fantastic pizzas in Brooklyn. You're talking about Domino's because they're doing something that's true to their purpose, right? Which I find really fascinating. And so I'll kick it over to Shannon, as we start to get deeper into the podcast, I'll throw a couple of more general questions out to you guys about how this could be leveraged and what we're seeing in the marketplace. Shannon, you brought up this idea of extended dwell time and what a value that is for brands. When you think about the universe of potentially connected touch points, what are some spaces that you're excited for brands to tap into next?
Yeah, no. So I've seen a lot of it, CPG is getting started, which is super exciting. You guys all mentioned QSR. And I think this is something that we're seeing because of COVID really pop up in the opportunity to do more. And I think it'll be interesting to see how retail does it, because retail already in many cases has D2C, right? Many of them have .coms, but are working to create more connected experiences. But I think one of the places, and the team kind of touched on it a little bit already, is around this idea of purpose and sharing what's meaningful to your brand. And I think as we have more and more conversations on sustainability and transparency, this is an area brands are going to lean into and really should lean into, because we're better to tell your story, to tell what you stand for, how you source your products, but off the product itself.
That's interesting because when you think about the retail channel, it is a legacy channel, right? Almost in the way that PAC is a legacy channel. These are things that have been a part of the brand ecosystem, since the days of the marketplace, right? And so to watch that transformation, I think is going to be really interesting. And, Chris, I know you're super connected in the retail space as well. Kick that same question over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, what I'd love to see next, I would say would be sort of the gamification I'm going to go the entertainment route, right? So really making the retail store a destination, whether it's for gamification or for engagement or for programmatic content. Like, I really need, I want to provide customers, consumers, the market with really compelling reasons to go to retail. I mean, the ultimate showrooming experience is now on an app or online. So it's not showrooming anymore. It's got to be about community. It's got to be about having an experience that you can't have right on in a digital space. I think a lot of it starts there though, and we expect it to continue, from a connected way. Like, I think about functionally, I just had a funny thought. I was in Home Depot yesterday and I couldn't find a product, and the way I found it was on the app. I jumped on the app, I found the product, and it said aisle 43, bin 8, or whatever it was, right? Instead of so even the app and the physical experience being kind of, connected, right? One and the same. It's not one or the other. I think it's about how these experiences all kind of come together. The other piece I think a lot about is just kind of meeting the content demand for connected and what that means. Speed of culture, speed of conversation, particularly when we think about some of the brands in these, what we've been calling these legacy spaces are big brands with, it's hard to move fast. It's hard to be nimble, and reinventing and rethinking how we go to market, how we tell stories. Wendy's is one that I think has done an amazing job in their social space. If you're not following, Wendy's on Instagram or on Twitter, you definitely should. And the way that they got ahead of that was they put a few, I think it was like a team of 2 or 3. We're not connected to this in any way, but I think it was a team of 2 or 3. There's some great articles out there, and just said, hey, like, we believe in you. You're our voice. Activate Wendy's at the speed of culture. And I know that, that works for Wendy's. They have a little bit more of an irreverent tone, and they're embracing that. But with other brands, particularly, CPG, big box retailers, thinking about how they can connect with the market in a real way at the speed of conversation, for me, is the next big hurdle. And I'm really excited to see how we, as a group, how other agencies, how other brands help to deliver those stories.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I mean, content, just like in so many other ways, really is the fuel of these connected experiences, right? The content needs to be appropriate. The content needs to be able to scale. It needs to be able to deliver in multiple ways. And so seeing how the content game evolves is for sure going to be interesting, especially as, traditional media channels for content become more fragmented. These alternative, more experientially based forums for delivery of content become more important to to the brands. So Jason, maybe we'll give you kind of the last word here. If you were going to, give brands that are looking at these experiences some advice, if there was a top sort of tips and tricks that you would throw out into the marketplace, what guidance would you give?
It's a great question. I mean, I loved what Chris and Shannon, the points you made, and I would probably, bring up similar examples. I mean, right now, we've been saying this a lot for the last year. We're really living in a very significantly different time, and it does appear as if we're making some turns, and there will be some transitions. And really, 2020 was a tough year. So I wonder how brands and services, and maybe I'm going a little bit on the healthcare side, but I could certainly do it in the retail side. I could certainly do it in the live music side. But how brands and businesses and help us make that transition, whether it's a struggling new brand or a big brand, going back to some of the points you guys were making, whether it's a sustainability conversation or a health experience, how we make that transition back to what we all hope is some normalcy. And I think that could be an incredible opportunity for the good of all of us, for all of us, and also for brands and services and businesses to help drive that and create content that's really, really relevant and be a part of that conversation. So I'm hoping that over the course of the remainder of this year and next year, when things start to really change, that we'll see brands and businesses and us as designers and branders kind of help look for opportunities to see us through a brighter day.
Yeah, I mean, that's an excellent way to wrap things up. As I reflect on kind of this conversation, one of the things that I find really energizing and exciting is that the notion of this brand launch has really been the catalyst for bringing us together. And as I'm watching you guys on screen, I can't help but think these are three people from three groups that would have never had a reason to have this conversation before. And now here we are. And I think it's a really, really powerful way to engage this conversation. I'm stoked for what could come from this as we continue the dialogue and we continue to stitch these experiences together for our clients, for brands, for the consumer. Really, really excited for what you guys brought to the table. Huge thanks for hanging out with us. Really appreciated all of your time and all of your input today.
Thank you. I know we all had a great time.
Thanks, AV.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks,
Thank you.
Jason.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you guys.
Cheers, Alex.
Cheers.